Well, Stipe is picking Francis. So Stipe came out and did an interview, and you got to really listen closely when Stipe talks because he doesn't do it very much and he doesn't play any games, right? Like if you ever see a Stipe interview, he answers the questions, but then he may not answer another question for 2 or 3 months. So you got to pay a little bit of attention. But he came out and he said that he wants to do the trilogy fight with Francis in early 2022. End quote. We have no more information, but that must mean that he thinks that Francis is going to win. I mean, does he want to fight Francis a third time just because? I'm assuming he wants to fight him for the belt, which means Francis has the belt, which means Francis beats Derek. But, 2022, that's a long ways away. And I know Stipe had goals of putting on about 20 pounds, and that's about how long it would take him. I don't know how close he'll get to that goal. Gaining weight is extremely difficult, particularly gaining good weight. But in about 10 months, he could do it. A guy his size could do that. And it's the same thing that Jon Jones is doing in many ways. Jon has now said, even earlier than Stipe made this comment by about an hour, but Jon said, I'm pushing my fight out because I haven't put on enough size. And I think I'm going to need X more amount of time. So how much of reality is going to be reflected in the statement of Jon Jones wanting more time or in Stipe being given more time? How much of that is going to be reality? I don't know. But for the sake of conversation, let's just take these guys at their word. Opportunity just knocked if you're a heavyweight. One thing that Francis Ngannou, and again, if with our detective work, with the chessboard, if we're just taking guys at their word, nothing else, no negotiation and no gamesmanship, one thing that Francis Ngannou, to use his words, said, I don't want to wait anymore. Francis did not like it after he beat Rosenstruck, got named the #1 contender, and had to wait until Stipe and Cormier got done with business, a full refreshing period and a training camp until he got in there. He said, don't do that to me again. I want to stay busy. I want to stay active. So if he's going to go and fight Derek, let's call it July, both his most likely suitors in Stipe and Jon Jones have still kicked the can on their own 6 more months. That's just too long to wait. I mean, not everybody can get their way. Not everybody can. And I think if we're going to serve people, we need to serve Francis first. I think there was a fair argument by Francis when he was named #1 contender. And he says, I don't get to go to work. I don't get a fight. I've done too good. I've done too good of a job that now the repercussion is I don't get to go do my job. I'm with Francis on that one. Totally. I like that kind of an attitude. I think it's refreshing. I think if we're going to serve any of them, we have to serve Francis. But as far as Stipe and Jon go, that's a period of time. And I bet that Stipe probably doesn't have a whole lot else he wants to do. He likely just wants to win that championship. I mean, he's the greatest heavyweight, most decorated heavyweight, most title defenses by any heavyweight in history. There's probably not a whole bunch of dreams and goals that he has left. I just don't know where Jones sits mentality-wise. And a big part of this sport and a big part about being toughness and showing toughness in the sport has to do with the date. The date, I would argue, is the single most important part of a contract. I mean, here, let me put it to you guys in different terms. If I tell you I'm going to give you $1 billion, I'm going to give you $1 billion, do you like that? Or more importantly, would you like to know when? And then I get cutesy with it. I go, well, I'm going to give you $1 a year for the next billion years. I mean, you see where the date becomes the single most important thing, but it also is what really shows you the bravado. It's one of the reasons that we respect the Olympic Games and the NCAA process so much. That date is set. We do not need to come to any of you athletes and ask, how are you feeling? Is this enough time? The date is set. And 4 years from now is already etched in stone as well. And 4 years after that is already etched in stone. It's going to be contested on this date. Sports and toughness have never been about doing something when you feel perfect, when you feel that it's at your absolute best. They're about doing them on a certain date. Who is the better fighter on this date? Specifically, I've never understood that where a guy goes on the injured list and gets to keep his ranking. I know that sounds cold by me, but I mean it. I don't get, if a guy openly says, I'm not tough enough to even walk out there and compete, how do the pundits keep him ranked #3 in the world? He just told you he's not even good enough to go try. I realize that doesn't come to you with a lot of heart. Hey, if a guy's nursing an injury, I understand that, but I'm making a fair point too. It has to do with the date. And if a guy starts missing matches because the dates don't line, he doesn't qualify as the same level of tough guy. Whatever the injury is, whatever the ailment is, there is no kindness and thought about that. Rankings should not care about your injuries. World championship belts and titles should not care about your feelings. They either are or they are not. Every 4 years, the right guy shows up for the Olympics. You think he feels like it? You think that was the ideal time? Has nothing to do with it. I read a book one time and it influenced me. It was called The Paradox of Choice. And it largely had to do with the restaurant industry, right? That if you're going to bring somebody a sandwich, you decide what you put on it. If you start giving people all these options, do you want yellow mustard? Do you want Dijon? Do you want mayonnaise? Do you want mayonnaise on the side? Do you want chips with that? Or would you like fries? Or would you like fruit? That it's not good. Quit giving so many choices. People don't want them. That isn't some level of freedom to have all of these choices. It ends up working against you. If you're the expert in the room, if you're the one that owns a restaurant and you're making the sandwich, you ought to know how to bring it out. You should be telling me. That's why I came down. I'm a customer here and I don't get up and sit down somewhere else, because you have done a better job of deciding for me what tastes best on my plate. It was very meaningful, but I do refer to that book as I watch this sport unfold, as I watch the sport of boxing not be able to get off the ground because how many choices they have. Are the gloves made in Mexico or the gloves made in China? Can the gloves have horsehair? This is real, guys. I'm not making a joke. What is the weigh-in going to be? How many people per corner? What time will the main event leave the locker room? That's written into contracts. Main event does not leave the locker room prior to 9:40 p.m. Eastern time. These are written into contracts. There's too much choice. And who does the promoter and who do people think that they're serving? The athletes don't want it. The athletes don't want to have to sit down and wonder and work all this stuff out. They don't want to have to get to the fax machine and print all this stuff off and go get new lawyers and go look at these different clauses. Nobody wants that. And real sport isn't ran that way. In all fairness, real sport is not done that way. Real sport, you were told clearly, here's what you're going to do for X amount of time, and then we're going to see who has more points. I think some of these fighters need to be really careful. The media doesn't need a Jon Jones. The media doesn't need a Stipe Miocic. We take them and we show respect to them. But in large part, it's because we haven't been offered something else. Other heavyweights haven't stepped forward. There's not another heavyweight out there that's interesting, even following some of the most basic moves. I mean, we've seen how far you can get in this sport by putting on a pair of sunglasses indoors. We've seen how far you can get in this sport by putting on a bow tie or a suit when everybody else is wearing t-shirts. I mean, not for nothing. There's some real obvious and some real easy ones out there that even the dum-dums will do. But if you're the only one doing it, well, then you don't look like a dum-dum. You look like the smartest and most unique person in the room. And I realize that heavyweight is bland. It is boring and vanilla right now. But there's going to be some heavyweight somewhere sitting back going, you know what? Stipe doesn't decide when this title gets fought for. And Jon Jones doesn't decide when this title gets fought for. And Francis Ngannou is looking for an opponent, and I'm willing to be it. At some point, a fellow heavyweight's going to understand this. I don't need to get along with Stipe. I don't need to get the blessing of Jon Jones. I need Francis to say my name. And Francis is big and scary and intimidating. And the two guys that you would think are going to be next for him have now both just done interviews and said that they're not fighting until the next calendar year. That's opportunity. That's all I'm suggesting for you. Not that Stipe or Jon is wrong. I'm suggesting it's opportunity. What is wrong is that these fellow heavyweights haven't stepped forward. They all seem to just understand, well, you know, Francis is going to go with Derek, and then they're sure going to try to get things done with Jon. And, you know, Stipe definitely deserves it because take it. Take it now. Not to mention Francis is agreeing with you. He just needs a body. He wants to go to work. Blades fought him twice. Why do you think Blades fought him twice? Because no one else wanted to fight him, and Blades wanted to fight him. Blades is likely to fight him a third time because of process of elimination. It won't have anything to do with the rankings. Everybody else is hiding and scared, and Blades is going, man, I'm in. And Francis is going, I'd like to get paid. Okay, this doesn't have to be some level of sophistication. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's a fist fight in a cage on Saturday night. It's pretty simple to do. Find two guys that want to do it. Everybody else will have a reason for not wanting to do it. That's fine. That makes you like the rest of the world. What separates us? Willingness and unwillingness. That's what this sport is. Why no heavyweight has stepped forward to call for this? Why Chael is sitting over here venting? Why? If we're going to take everybody at our word, and the number 2 and the number 3 guy just left town until 2022, and the champion of the world would like to get paid, be the guy. Get the blessing. You don't have to be ranked somewhere. That's made up. That's fiction. You don't have to have anything. You just have to have a contract and a date with your partner, who in this case happens to be the predator, but happens to also say that he wants to be very busy and happens to only be tied up with one thing, and that's known as Derek Lewis. He's going to be looking for something to do after that. If that's your goal and your dream, that just sounds like a bad idea, but no problem. I understand that side of it too. I understand that's a scary fight. But if that doesn't scare you, if that is something you would like to do, you're just being quiet and keeping your head down because you believe falsely that Jones and Stipe have that market cornered in the foreseeable future, now's your time. Now is absolutely your time. Daniel Cormier called out Ozdemir. Daniel was the champion of the world. Champions don't call people out. Daniel did. Ozdemir got a world title fight. Kamaru Usman just gave the blessing to George Masvidal. None of the winds were blowing in that direction. Usman goes on ESPN after he got done with Gilbert Burns, says Masvidal's name. All of a sudden, box office history. But this is how these things happen. If you're sitting around waiting for something to happen to you, or you think that this is some big sophisticated play, and a lot of people in MMA do, a lot of people do, they think there's all sorts of strategies, and you sit around and you manipulate, and you play with this, and hopefully your phone rings. You got a great opportunity right now. You weigh more than 205 pounds, less than 265 pounds. You're signed to a company that knows the Ultimate Fighting Championships, and you'd like a shot at glory. Opportunity is there right now. We need to hear from you. Lay your case out. Whatever it is, lay your case out. Because the two guys who have earned the right just left town. The guy with the belt, busy in July, says he'd like to stay busy again in September and October. Think it over. Do what you want to do. It's your career. But if you follow the pieces, those guys don't decide. Stipe and Jon Jones don't decide when Francis gets to go to work. Francis says he would like to go to work more often than not. He needs to work with somebody. Is it you?